The Too Tall Sports Podcast is brought to you by Vegas Sports Advantage. Yes, we have our first sponsor. My thanks to them. Clients of Vegas Sports Advantage are winning big in 2021, and you can be a part of the winning too. Become a client today by clicking the link in the description below of the episode or the show notes, wherever you can find the text underneath this episode on your app or on YouTube in the comment section. Use promo code TOOTALL. It's all one word, TOOTALL, Too Tall, and you get 25% off your package thanks to our partnership with Vegas Sports Advantage. They are a bet texting service. They give you tips. They send you the plays right before the game. They're not a sports book. You'll make the plays on your own sports book or own sports betting website. They're just going to text you every day with their best plays. They're killing it this year. So my thanks to Vegas Sports Advantage. I use the service as well. Already made money on it. So I'm a big believer. These guys are doing really good things with their algorithm, and however they figure it out, these guys have the advantage. So that's why they're called Vegas Sports Advantage. Check them out. Use promo code TOOTALL. Welcome back to my new segment. I call it 2 cents, and I'm going to give you my 2 cents on the Too Tall Sports Podcast. This week, this is a Shohei Ohtani appreciation segment, okay? Recently, I'll give you some background. Recently, Stephen A. Smith. If you don't know him, he's a commentator on ESPN. He is in hot water lately with a bunch of bad takes, but that's a whole nother reason. But recently he said that MLB is struggling and is blowing their opportunity to market its stars, and they're not doing a good enough job, and they're not promoting Shohei enough. Okay. Then yesterday he comes back, or a couple days ago, and says, well, he can't be the face of baseball in America because he needs an interpreter. This was a bad miss by him. Are we forgetting that Ichiro Suzuki hid behind his interpreter for his entire career and was one of the most beloved and one of the greatest players we've ever seen from Japan? There's been plenty of players that have used interpreters. Vlad Guerrero used to do it. So why is it that all of a sudden, because he needs an interpreter, he can't be the face of baseball? You know why he is the face of baseball? Just to start, he's starting the All-Star game as a pitcher, and he's also going to hit and he made it as both. He's leading the Angels. Let me get these numbers right just so I can get this for you. He's leading the Angels, a Major League Baseball team, as a hitter in runs scored with 65. He's got 70 RBIs at the break, 33 homers at the break. And oh, by the way, he leads the team in steals with 12 at the break. Okay. This is a pitcher who's also a part-time hitter, a modern-day Babe Ruth. We've never seen anything like this before. None of us were alive for Babe Ruth. I don't think. I mean, I don't know how old the oldest person is listening to this, but I guarantee you didn't watch him play. I don't understand how anybody can hate on this guy. And I don't think a lot of people do. I think people are looking at him like, this is awesome. We don't grow up, especially as baseball players. You don't play multiple positions. There are no two-way players in baseball. It just doesn't happen. You're either pushed to be a pitcher only or you're pushed to be a hitter only. This guy is showing you can be not only good at both, but great at both. You know how hard it is to hit in baseball? It is really, really hard. It's probably the toughest thing to do in sports, in my opinion. Like, if people tell you otherwise, I don't know if you watched the celebrity softball game, if any of you saw the highlight of DK Metcalf, the receiver for the Seattle Seahawks, try to swing a bat. Yeah, you need a little hand-eye coordination. So it takes some different athleticism. Obviously, DK is an incredible athlete, one of the best receivers in the league. But just shows you, just because you're strong and fast doesn't mean you can hit a baseball or a softball for that reason, right? And as a pitcher, he's been doing great as well, going back to Ohtani. I mean, he's got a 3.49 ERA. He's 4-1. I mean, he's 87 strikeouts in 67 innings, and he's got electric stuff. So I just don't like that there's any hate at all coming toward him. He's done nothing wrong. From all reports, he's a great teammate. He's nothing but nice to people, and he should be the star of our league. Unfortunately, the other star of our league is on his team, and he's hurt, Mike Trout. And the other unfortunate thing is you got two of the best players we've seen in a long time in baseball. And this Angels team hasn't sniffed the playoffs in a while. Maybe you think 2014 or 15, and they got swept when they got there. So you got Trout, who's the best player in the league, who has barely played in the playoffs in his career. And now you got Ohtani on a team that's one game over 500 at the break. This is the problem with baseball. is the stars aren't on the best teams. Now, you could say we got Tatis, we got Mookie Betts, we got all these other guys, Bogarts and Devers on the Boston Red Sox. There are some stars in other places. You got Stanton, you got Judge, right? You got all the Astros and all those guys. So they're on good teams. But you have our biggest star right now. You could say it's Ohtani, right? And you listen to the players when they go to the I want to see Ohtani. I want to see him pitch. I want to see him hitting the home run derby. Obviously he was gassed out because it's hard to take that many swings consecutively in Mile High, basically Colorado's, because of the altitude. But there is a global demand for this guy. And I went to an Angel game recently with my buddies, and we. Thank God one of my buddies picked the right day. We went to see Ohtani pitch, and it was awesome. He didn't hit any homers that day, but just the buzz in Angel Stadium, which doesn't sell out ever unless the Yankees or Red Sox are in town. But even then, they barely draw. That's a whole nother issue. You got to start winning. That's the secret. When I saw Ohtani, it was like, damn, this guy's unbelievable. I mean, he was really good. Didn't have like his best stuff, but he was still really good. So I think it's unfortunate that people think he needs to speak English or he isn't going to assimilate well to American culture. I think he's doing just fine. And like I mentioned, there have been plenty other guys in all sports that have needed interpreters, but it doesn't really matter what you say. This isn't the UFC where you need to self-promote, like listening to a Conor McGregor, draw you in to watch his fights. No, all you need to see is watch this guy play baseball, watch him pitch, watch him hit. That's all. That's enough. That's all you need to see, because he's a freaking phenom and he needs to be celebrated. And so I can't wait to see how his career unfolds. But just wanted to come on and give you my 2 cents on Shohei Ohtani, because he's an absolute star. So if you get a chance to watch the Angels play, watch this guy play. I know baseball can be boring sometimes, but this dude's unbelievable. So I think I wanted to appreciate Shohei Ohtani today. So a modern day Babe Ruth, like I said. So that's my 2 cents on Shohei. Enjoyed the episode. That's right. It is the Too Tall Sports Podcast. Thank you for joining me today. My guest is the head coach of the Nevada Wolfpack baseball team, University of Nevada, Reno. He is TJ Bruce. He's an awesome guy. He spent time coaching at Long Beach State. He coached as an assistant during the College World Series run with UCLA from 2011 to 2015. And he's been at Nevada for 6 years now. He was one of the assistant coaches for me when I was at Long Beach State. So great guy. He's had a great run at different stops, and he just came off of the first regional in Nevada baseball, recent history for the last 20 years. So first time in 20 years that Nevada baseball has made it to a playoff regional. So really cool to talk to TJ, track him down. We talk all about recruiting and all about what it's been like for him, his journey as a player, and then as a coach, just some of the players he's come across. It's a great interview, so I think you guys will really enjoy it. And he talks all about Nevada baseball, so it'll be really cool. As always, you can follow me at Too Tall Sports Podcast. That's on Instagram. On Twitter, it's at Too Tall Sports. Go ahead and hit me up there. I'm trying to come out with more content and bring more things to you guys. So for more interactive, inner daily stuff, just check me out at Too Tall Sports Podcast. That's on Instagram. I'm doing a lot of videos there. So more reaction, just to, try to engage with you guys more. So check me out there. If you'd like to watch the videos and interviews, you can check out our YouTube channel. That's Too Tall Sports Podcast. Go ahead and subscribe, hit the bell notification. We drop episodes every Thursday, so hit me up there and follow Too Tall Sports Podcast. On the audio side, it's going to be Apple Podcasts, so you can go ahead and subscribe. Scroll all the way down if you could. I say it every episode. If you haven't done it already, it takes 2 seconds if you're already on the app. Hit the 5 stars. We need those reviews to kind of boost the show, help with exposure. If you want to drop a comment or leave a review, that would help also on Apple Podcasts. So if you have the time, say the show is great. If you like it, you like it. It's great. So we'd really appreciate it. Also, if you're on Spotify, you can follow us along there. You can listen on there. We're on Pandora if you want to listen there. We're on Amazon Music, Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts, we're probably there. Just type in Too Tall Sports Podcast. Anyway, thank you for being with us again today, and here's my interview with TJ Bruce. Too Tall. Going crazy. All right, welcome back to the Too Tall Sports Podcast. My next guest is fresh off a postseason regional run for the first time in over 20 years at the University of Nevada. He was an assistant baseball coach at UCLA and helped them get to a College World Series championship back in 2013. He played his college ball at Cerritos, Texas Tech, and Long Beach State. He was an assistant when I was at Long Beach back in 2008, and he's the head coach for the Nevada Wolfpack baseball program. He is TJ Bruce. What's going on, TJ? Thanks for being on the show.
What's happening, Brett, man? Good to catch up and see your face.
Yeah, I know, right? It's been way too long.
It's been a long time, man. I don't even know. Gosh, probably sometime when you were playing pro ball, I would think, when you were coming back to Long Beach in the off season a little bit. And but it's good, man. You're doing good things, and I appreciate you taking the time for us.
Yeah, definitely, man. No, it's great to run you down. And you start doing big stuff at Nevada. I gotta talk to you, So and just for reference, I had another former Long Beach State dirtbag, Abe Alvarez, on a few months ago. He's an assistant at Nevada, so now I got the head coach, TJ, at Nevada. So it's good to get the full program. I might have to get Buck on at some point.
Yeah, you got it, man. You got to do the whole circle and get everybody on there.
Exactly. Before we get to your background, I kind of want to start off with your recent postseason run that you guys had. Like I mentioned, it's been over 2 decades since Nevada made a postseason run for the baseball program. How would you describe everything that went on the last month or so for the program?
From playing for Coach Weathers, it's just I just had the best seat in the house. I had a chance to sit back, and I know Coach would always say, just try and stay out of their way. And that was really the whole thing we tried to do as a staff. We had the blueprint, and I guess you put this. You're like a tour guide, but a lot of it is you got to go off of what they're doing and what they're feeling, and that's really it. And I think what our guys did was magical, to win 15 straight conference games. I don't care what league, where, that's really hard to do.
Yeah.
And put themselves in a position to have an opportunity to win the league at home, which we did. And then obviously our first postseason berth in 2 decades, which is a huge step forward for the program, and a tribute more to our coaches and to our players. I mean, our assistants did a great job. As you know, they're in the trenches, man. They're with those guys day in and day out. And our players, the other part is our players are doing the work, and they're stringing the at-bats along. They're passing the baton from the starter to the bullpen guy to the closer and giving themselves a chance to win. So magical is really how I looked at it, and just tried to enjoy every minute of it.
Yeah, no, I bet it's got to be exciting to do that. But you've been to regional playoff games before. Not much time to prepare for the teams you're going to face in the tournament. So what's like the mindset going into a playoff game against maybe some teams that you might know the program, but you haven't played them necessarily this year or even a few years ago?
Yeah, I think, it's always, I guess the good news was we are a little familiar with Stanford and Irvine, and just maybe not so much the programs as of today, but more over the history of time. Having a chance to see Ben Orloff play and know what he was as a player and then as an assistant. And then obviously he learned under the great Skip, Mike Gillespie, and then obviously playing Coach Esker when he was at Cal for all those years. So you kind of knew, I think you had a little bit more feel of what was going to happen. We never got a chance to play Stanford, but we did open up with Irvine. And, nothing, I don't think anything they did surprised us in terms of, tough at bats with 2 strikes, some skill stuff. One of the better defensive clubs we've played all year. Benny just does an incredible job at preparing those guys, and he's the same way he was as a player. So, and then the other side is, we have to perform, which is a lot of it is knowing your opponent, but also preparing or, performing. And unfortunately we didn't perform the way we wanted to. But like I try to tell our guys in terms of what you said about preparation, the game's no different. I know it's a little different stage. Everything's a little more magnified. But it's still 60 feet, 6 inches. People are still going to pitch backwards with runners in scoring position. Still 90 feet bases. You still got to control the strike zone offensively. But that's really what the message was to our team. We try to keep it like we've been doing it the last 6 weeks of the year. And I thought we did a good job from a program standpoint trying to manage that. But I just thought we just didn't perform. And that's really what it was. And it wasn't due to lack of preparation. I know
Sure.
that. And
Yeah.
it's just one of those things, man. Baseball,
Yeah.
it happens, and you learn from it.
So it's sometimes you run into a hot team. Like, for instance, we'll talk about Long Beach in a little bit, but remember when we were there, Fresno State came through our regional and won the College World Series, went through everybody. It's hard. It's just who's playing well at the right time. There's no other way around it.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's, you get down to 64 teams, as you said, and everything is just so much more magnified. So I think the only thing, always the learning lesson, I think it's one of the hardest things to do, but is to make everything like it is in June. And that's really hard to do when it's in September and October and November. But I think the good programs that have longevity of doing something like this in June do that. And they make everything is important. Everything is bottom of the ninth. Nick Saban has a thing, everything's fourth and goal. Every decision in the program's fourth and goal. And I think as we keep moving forward as a program, I think the more we have now, when we talk about June, you have 20 guys that have been there, and it's not foreign to them per se. It's not new. They know exactly what I'm talking about when we're talking about a safety squeeze, first and third in the seventh inning, or strikes 2 out of 3, why they're important. And you can reference those things and learn from it and keep building off of it is what I think you need to do.
Sure. Last thing on this season before I get to your background, you guys did win the Mountain West Conference, which is a big deal. No matter, like you said earlier, 15 games in a row, no matter what, that's a cool thing to have for your program. So what did it mean for you guys to win the Mountain West Conference?
I mean, I think it's just an incredible accomplishment. Anytime you can win a league, I'm not a big tournament fan. I don't like them. I don't think they do us any good. I think you make the 30-game schedule less important when you do that. So lucky enough that this year our team won our league, and the right team got rewarded because you went through 36 league games.
Right.
And that's a true champion, in my opinion. Not just getting hot for 3 days, So yeah. I think what we've done is a huge step. We've won our league now twice in the last 3 years, minus you cut out 20, but we won in 18, and then we won in 21. So I think those are huge steps forward, and they're hard to do. So anytime you can win your league, that's goal number one. I don't care what it is, but that's goal number one, is you have to win your league. And it's a lot like, you go back to USC football. Obviously, I'm a huge college football fan, and Pete Carroll it was never about the Rose Bowl. It was always about winning the Pac-10 or the Pac-12. And I think that's the same here with what we're trying to do, is we want to win our league. And if we can do that, then the trajectory is keep going upwards.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Before we get back to your coaching, let's talk about your playing days a little bit. So you went to high school at St. John Bosco in Southern California, which is a powerhouse athletic school, mostly known for football. But some people don't know that there were some big names that came out of St. John Bosco, like Evan Longoria and Omar Garcia-Parra, and of course you.
Bud Smith. Don't forget about Bud Smith, threw a no-hitter.
Oh, yeah, okay.
In 2001. Yeah.
Okay. But I'll give him his props, Bud Smith. When you were in high school, as far as just let us know, what kind of player were you? What were your thoughts on playing in college? Like, what was it like for you as a baseball player in high school?
Yeah, I think, I was fortunate to go to St. John Bosco. I had a little connection there with who my head coach isn't there anymore at the time. But he coached my cousin in travel ball with the Pico Rivera Dodgers. So I had a little bit of a connection, and so that was really what prompted. I was a public school kid my whole time. So that's what prompted me to maybe venture out. And I could have went to the local public school, which would have been Lakewood High School, which is obviously a well-known baseball school. But I wanted to be a little different, kind of beat to my own drum to a degree. So I went down the street to Bellflower to St. John Bosco, and I think the player I was, I think I was a good player. I think I tried to do the right thing most of the time. I was probably not as good. You're never as good as you think you are, and you're never as bad as you think you are. I think it is part of it. But I had a chance to play shortstop there for 3 years on the varsity level, and won a league championship in that league with Mater Dei and Santa Margarita and Servite and all the big boys.
That's a tough
My
league.
last year, and then obviously school. I wasn't very good academically, so I ended up going to the JC route, which was probably the best thing for me. And then that's where I think I became tougher. I needed to get tougher. I needed to be, my high school coach was really tough, but it was a whole nother level going to Cerritos College, and the likes of George Horton and Mike Weathers and Dave Snow and Bill Mosiello and Brian Hunter and all these great birds, and the tradition there. That's where I think my coach Gaylord, who was not there anymore either, but he definitely got me tougher, made me really uncomfortable. Probably the first time I got benched, and just for reasons that you didn't know, you just got benched, just maybe because, or wanted to see how you responded. But that's where I think I really learned my game a little bit, being being a kind of a guy that can handle the bat, take a dose, draw a walk, no power. I have 3 college home runs.
Okay.
So no power, not really a burner, but could run a little bit. But I think I can really play multiple spots, and I thought I could really play defense. Even I tell our guys to this day, I think I can still really play defense. Now I can't recover like I used to anymore,
Sure. But you teach defense really well from what I remember.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just something I've really prided myself in doing. I think that was part of it, how I had to play every day.
Right.
Was the coaches had to know what I could bring to the table. And I think part of it was, kind of a high risk, high reward type of player, and not really carefree of how my body was. I just played.
Sure.
And I hit 1, 2, or 9th at Cerritos most of the time. Never hit in the middle of the lineup ever. And then played short for 2 years and moved on to Texas Tech, and really probably had the best career I've had at the collegiate level by far.
I was gonna, sorry to interrupt. I was gonna get to that. So you had a great 2 years at Cerritos, but what was it about Texas Tech? How do you go from local JC guy to I'm going to a big time program in Texas at Texas Tech? How did that all come about?
I don't really know. I think part of it was I wasn't really recruited to the West at all, a whole lot. I had to get my AA because I wasn't very good academically. I was a non-qualifier out of high school, so I had to get my AA, and I did that at Cerritos. But I think Fullerton recruited me a little bit, but no Long Beach, no Loyola, nobody on the West. Just Fullerton dabbled a little bit. I think it was Coach Serrano at the time that did a little bit, but ended up getting recruited by Texas Tech. Mainly the 2 schools were Texas Tech and Oklahoma State.
Oh, wow.
And I ended up ultimately choosing Texas Tech. I had a little bit of time. My grandparents lived in Lubbock. In fact, they're both they both have passed since, but they're both buried in Lubbock, and their house is still in Lubbock. And so I grew up. They lived there for 35 years. So Lubbock to me wasn't. It's different for most California kids, but it wasn't different for me. And I think that was part of it. They would have a chance to see me play a little bit. It was a big time school and a big time league, and I've always wanted to go away to school to experience it. And I went away and did it for a year.
Yeah, and then you decided to come back and you go to Long Beach State. So even though they didn't recruit you out of Cerritos, what was it like for you to come back from Texas Tech and then come back home, so to say, and then go to Long Beach State?
Yeah, I think it was good. I thought, the decision of leaving there was tough. It was a pretty mutual decision from the staff and myself. There wasn't I don't think they were surprised, and I wasn't really surprised the feedback. I think part of it is there's always fits, and I came from Cerritos College, and that was a pretty in-your-face type program. If you didn't like it, then you didn't like what was going on, then the leadership was you were pretty confrontational. And it was a little bit like Long Beach, because I think those programs and the Fullertons they all stem from Wally Kincaid. And so I think part of it just didn't really fit my style to a degree. And I don't think I fit their style, so it's fine. It was, as they would say, it was, it was amicable. It was, it was a good
clean
split.
break. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good break. It was a clean. I got nothing but respect for them, but I wanted to, and the ultimate goal is I wanted to go to Omaha, and I didn't really care how and if I was going to play or not. I think a chance to play at home is a huge deal. And so my best man at my wedding was Mike Ophius, who I grew up with my whole life. And as you know, played first base for Long Beach for the 4 years. And then, so I called him when I was leaving. I said, "Hey, I'm getting out of here. What do you think?" And he goes, "Well, let me talk to Coach Buckley." Well, Coach Buckley recruited me at Santa Clara out of high school until he saw my transcripts. And then that was that was the end of that. So he called Buck, and Buck called me, and we kind of we arranged a visit. And I'll never forget, they were preparing for the Super Regional in 2003. They were getting ready to play for Stanford, and I went down there to the practice field, and I met with Coach Weathers and Buck, and we ended up working it out. But it was good. It was probably more pressure on myself than I thought it was going to be. And I think I underperformed. I don't think, to this day, we talk about it with Coach Weathers, but wasn't what they expected either, to a degree, more from the offensive side. You go from hitting 321 in the Big 12 to I hit 187. I mean, and so I think I ended up starting 32 games or 33 games on a super regional team, ended up playing all three spots. So I think from that standpoint, I was fine. I think they knew what they were getting, and I was always in the game. And you know how coach is. It's, if you're not playing, then you better prepare to be in the game. And I was always in the game somewhere. But now looking back, it led me to the bigger picture of coaching. And I think that part of that prepared me, or a lot of it prepared me for where I'm at today.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I was going to go next is you decide to become a grad assistant, then you go to Cerritos, and then you come back to Long Beach State. So when did you know you wanted to be a coach? Like, when did that all start?
Well, I didn't. That's the whole thing. It was kind of after the 2004 year, I wasn't really sure where I was going to go. I knew there was no pro ball, and it's the old saying, right, of there's no, the game retires you. We all know that. It's the game. You very rarely retire on your own terms.
Right.
And the game retired me, and it wasn't ready. And I had a great 2004 summer. I finally, for the first time since I was probably 5, I had a summer that I didn't have baseball. So I had a lot of time to think. I had 1 year of school left, because basically my transferring the 2003 year wiped out at Texas Tech. It didn't matter. Yeah. So I had another year of school, and Coach Weathers called me a few times, and I wasn't really interested, in all honesty. I was like, no, I don't really, I knew what it entailed. There was a lot of dragging the field, a lot of water in the field, a lot of laundry. I was ready to move on, actually, with my life and see what was out there. And
it's hard to go into coaching right after you're done playing. You're like not really ready to give up the game. You know what I mean? And you're going to be coaching guys that are similar in age, and you're like, a lot of guys I think I still could be playing. So that's a tough mental hurdle, I could imagine, for you to go right into coaching right after.
Yeah, and I think part of it, if I would have hit 300 or 280, I would have taken 250.
Right.
Actually.
Yeah.
But if I think I would have had a better year, it probably would have been a little tougher to get over that part. I knew I could still play from a physical standpoint defensively, but I don't know, somewhere along the lines, I lost I don't know, something happened and it just wasn't in my cards. So I think it was more, I had no direction for the first time in a long time, and I think which is fine. I was okay with that because you put all your eggs into one basket. I'd rather have it that way than have one foot in, one foot out.
Right.
So coach thankfully didn't give up on me and kept calling and calling and calling. I told him I need to make some money. My mom was like, hey, we're going to have to kind of trim you back here pretty soon. Your scholarship's dwindling down fast. So I was 22. And so I ended up getting a job. He ended up getting a job for me with a donor at the docks working for BP, Houston Bob. And
yeah.
I ended up getting a job down there from 6 to noon every day, making different, making, I don't know, whatever, $15 an hour at that time, which was probably pretty good, still living at home. And it freed me up to coach and do a lot of laundry and just kind of learn and see if I wanted to coach. And then after that 05 year, the cool thing was going back is, Tulo and I are really close, and we were obviously in each other's weddings, and he's the godfather of my daughter. And so it's cool to go through that stuff with him his junior year. And I felt like that part was really cool to watch, and just being a part of his journey and doing that. And then now where we both are now and in our journeys now, I think that was really cool as I look back on it. But and then at the end of 05, Coach Weathers told me I need to figure out, I graduated. He said I need to figure out if I wanted to coach or not. So I left, and he goes, you got to leave here to figure out what you want to do. And so I left and went to Cerritos College, and then tried to coach, made $5,000 in 2006, and got engaged in 05, the fall of 05. So I got engaged while I was at Cerritos and making $5,000 or $6,000, whatever it was. And then coach brought me back.
Yeah, and before we go on to our team, when I transferred over, you got to, like you mentioned, Tulo, so Troy Tulowitzki, Jared Weaver, Abe Alvarez, who's a coach with you now, Evan Longoria. I mean, the names that were at Long Beach while you were there, whether playing or coaching, what do you remember about those guys? Like, could you tell right away they were going to be big leaguers, big stars, whatever? Like, what was it like playing and coaching those guys?
It was pretty neat to be up close and personal with them. And I think when you look back and on what you've learned from it, number one that sticks out is the work. And I think those guys were just, they're different. I don't necessarily know if I even thought about them as big leaguers, or I didn't really know the landscape
right
to a degree. And I was probably pretty naive. I was just like, oh, they're my teammates and they're my friends. And,
right.
Weaver pitches on Friday, and then we all go to breakfast Saturday morning. There was just different. I never really thought about it. And Tulo with the same thing, because that's probably who I was the closest with at the time, and still am at the time. And it was just, I don't know, it's just who they were. They put their pant legs on just like I did. So I just didn't really think of it any different.
Sure.
But now looking back, it was pretty neat just to watch them go about and how special it truly was that those players don't come around every day.
Right.
And I think you take it for granted, for sure, being at a program like Long Beach during that time when they were pumping out those guys. The list is endless too. It's incredible. And you do take it for granted. You take for granted the regionals, and you take for granted the supers. And then I didn't know any different for the first 10 years of my coaching career. I thought you just woke up and brushed your teeth and put your pants on and you went to a regional every year. I just thought that's what it was.
Right. That's what it seemed like. There's so much talent going through there.
I didn't even know, but I thought what it did teach me was there's expectations, and there's okay to have expectations, and I know we're living in a completely different time nowadays where we just want so many, the word fun gets thrown around so easily, and, but, we don't want expectations because we don't want to be disappointed, yet the best way to learn from failure is or the best way to learn is learn from failure and be disappointed and figure out why it didn't work out and why it did work out. Or, so I think that was a really cool thing. It meant there was okay to have expectations, and then that was okay.
Speaking of expectations, so I transferred to Long Beach State for the 2007-2008 season. You were there as one of the assistants. That's how you and I met. And I was coming into a program with a ton of talent. I mean, guys like Danny Espinoza, who you coached in the infield, and we had tons of guys, Shane Peterson and Shaw and Worley and all these guys, right? We had a ton of talent. And we did make it to a regional, although we lost. Like we mentioned, the year Fresno State went all the way. They came out of our regional. But we did beat Fullerton to win the Big West. That was a big deal. What do you remember about the 2008 season?
Man, I you know what? I just, that 08 team was so good. I mean, I thought that was an Omaha team. I think for the first time, that team was probably the first time I thought, like, whoa, like this is a little different. It's way different. You're so close and in it as a player that you don't really think about it. But now as a coach, and my second year having having coach third base and do the infielders and having some responsibility, you're like, man, these guys are really good. And there was a moment there we were in the top 5 ranked team in the country. And I don't know if you remember, we were 17-3 going to Cal.
Yes.
And if you remember that trip, it was a road trip it was the worst road trip I've ever been a part of in my career.
We lost. We got swept by Cal. We went
Yep.
to Stanford, lost, and then we went to Fresno State and lost 5 days in a row.
And you're just like, what is going on? And we were the 3rd ranked team walking into Cal, and I don't even think we were ranked after the 5 losses in a row. But that 08 team was special, and it was the players, and it was you guys just being around. It was a good group of guys.
Yes,
and that's
we had
what
a veteran
that's what
team. Yeah.
That's what I thought was really cool about it. And I think even talking to Espinosa now, it's even to this day, talking to Danny via text or social media, and Shane Peterson every once in a while, it's like those guys, they're just good guys. And
Yeah.
It was fun to be around them. It was fun. It was fun to watch you guys go 17-3 and then dig yourself out of your own hole. If you remember right, we had to go slow, and coach pulls the team and the cages down the right field line and basically tells you guys, if you don't win 2 out of 3, you're in trouble. You're not making the postseason. And then we ended up going on this run, and we ended up beating Fullerton in that rain. Was it at home? So I thought it was just really cool.
Yeah, to win the conference. That was, the highlight of the year for sure. That was a lot of fun. But yeah, it was a crazy year, but we had a lot of talent then. Going back to you, so when I was doing my research for all your stuff, I watched your press conference when you got hired at Nevada, and it was great. It was cool to see you, finally get, like, you're the guy, like you got that honor. You said a lot about Coach Savage, John Savage at UCLA, that you credit him a lot for your success. You were there for 5 years, I think from 2011 to 2015, those seasons. What did you learn from Coach Savage when you were at UCLA?
Yeah, there's the journey. If you remember right, I didn't get hired at Long Beach in 2010.
Right.
So I ended up going to Alaska, and it was kind of the last ditch effort. I felt like I put my time in as a volunteer. I did it for 5 years, and I worked my way up from an undergrad to, I was still doing laundry in 2010 at being married, and I had a daughter at the time, and I felt like I gave myself an opportunity to move up, and it didn't happen for me. And so I ended up going to Alaska for the summer. I made $4,000.
You were coaching up there?
Yeah, I was the head coach in Alaska for the summer league.
Got it.
In Anchorage. And I tried a few times to get hired. Cal Poly slow. I interviewed with them. It just didn't work out. And then I got a call out of the blue from Coach Savage, who I interviewed for in 2009 when I was at Long Beach. I interviewed with him, and he called me out of the blue, and they were in Omaha playing for a national championship, and he was going to lose Coach Purse. And we talked throughout the summer, and it ended up working out. And I think the biggest thing, I learned so much from him, but I think part of it is know your strength. I tell our coaches and our players that all the time. I think too many times we get caught up in, and it's easy, get caught up in other people, and you want to be somebody else, and you think you got to do it this way. But part of why people are successful is because they know their strengths and their weaknesses, for that matter, and they can surround people that can offset them. And I think that was a huge part of it. Obviously, the organization, the recruiting part was huge for me. I went there as a second assistant with him and Rick Vanderhook, who was unbelievable to sit around and just watch those guys do their thing. And I really didn't have a whole lot of responsibility. I coached third base and I did the infielders the same I was doing at Long Beach. I recruited, but I wasn't the lead guy because Hookie was. And then the summer the next year, the summer 2011, is really when my career took off under John, because Hookie left and took the Fullerton job.
Right.
And it was like, hey, we're sitting around left, not we, but I was. And it's like, okay, you got to take the bull by the horns. And that's when I kind of moved in the recruiting role, and which I think is the most important thing in this game.
For sure.
And I kind of moved into that role, and it took off, and we ended up winning, gosh, I don't know. I think in 5 years there, we won 202 games.
Crazy.
3 Pac-12 championships, 2 trips to Omaha, and a national title in 2013. You can argue it's probably the most successful 5 years in UCLA baseball history, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about that 2013 College World Series. That season was incredible. The numbers were insane, the amount of games you guys won. It was your first time in Omaha, I mean, especially as a coach also, right? So what was that whole experience like for those that don't know what it was like to be there and eventually win a national championship?
Yeah, 12 was good. 12, when we went to Omaha in 12, and it was good. I don't think I enjoyed it as much.
Sorry. You had Bauer and Garrett Cole, right, on that
team?
In
11.
In 11, okay.
And we didn't make it out of our own regional.
That's exactly right. You never know.
Never know. And you had 2 of the greatest college pitchers of all time, and at that time in the country. And that's where you just don't know. I think Irvine won our regional.
Okay.
Actually, we lost to USF, and then Bauer beat Fresno on Saturday, and we won on Sunday. We beat somebody, I don't even know who. We beat somebody on Sunday to get to Irvine, I think, and then we lost. We lost the night
twice.
game. Yeah. We lost the night game, I think, on a walk-off or in the 9th inning or something.
Wow.
In 11. And then in 12, we went to Omaha, which was an incredible team. And I think the best thing about that team was there was no hangover of the Cole and Bauer effect. And I think that has a tendency to happen with teams and programs. And instead, that 12 team just elevated themselves. You had Plutko, who was a sophomore. Vandertide was a sophomore. Grant Watson was a sophomore. Valeka was a sophomore. You had all these sophomores playing. Now, we were fairly old in some areas. You had a first rounder in right, Jeff Jelilich. Bo Amaral was in center. You had a lot of older guys in some key areas, but predominantly our team that won the next year was all those sophomores that were in Omaha in 12.
Okay.
Which was pretty neat.
Yeah, and sorry, I know we kind of got sidetracked there, but I know regionals are cool, right? They're playoff games, they're fun. But as far as playing in Omaha, the atmosphere, the crowd, the whole, can you feel that while you're there? Is it different for you?
Oh man, it's incredible. And it's funny watching Omaha now, because we played Mississippi State and we beat them in the national title game in 13.
Oh, wow.
But and I was talking to Tulo about this the other day. I mean, their fan base is incredible, and huge shout out to them, because what they do from a fan base is nothing like anybody's ever seen. and you think you know what it is on TV right now, it's 10 times when you're there. I mean, the place holds 25 or 26,000. I bet you 24,000 of them are Mississippi State fans. I'm telling you.
Damn,
And
they travel well.
the cowbells, we're playing, so in 13 was a heck of a year because, again, no one really expected us to do much. We knew we were good. We weren't really offensive that year, but we can really play defense. Our shortstop won the Gold Glove for college baseball that year, and we had Plutko and Vandertag and Watson, the guys I mentioned in 12, and we had Brian Carroll and Kevin Kramer, who's in the big leagues, and Valeka's obviously in the big leagues. So is Plutko. We had all these guys, and we just ran through everybody that we ran through number one seeds. I mean, all over. That Fullerton team we beat in the Super Regional is arguably the best Fullerton team that I've played against or coached against. And I'll never forget when we won our regional in 13, we beat USD, won the regional. We go to Fullerton, got to play on the road, and Lorenzen's in center field, Wallach's catching, Eshelman is pitching. So you got three big leaguers in the middle of the field right off the bat. And we hit a base hit with 2 outs. And Pat Valeka can't run. He's not a burner. And so I sent him with 2 outs, and it's bang, bang at the plate. He slides in right, hard and late. Chad Wallach blocks it like he should. And Valeka, who doesn't show any emotion at all, stands up and gives this safe call. And it's like, at that point, you're like, okay, it's like, you're like, okay, this thing's different. And we're not going to be bullied. We're coming to get you. And I think after that, I mean, we went 10-0 in the postseason, beat Fullerton. Then you go to LSU, game 1, facing Aaron Nola, who's in the big leagues.
Yeah.
Bregman's playing short. I don't think LeMahieu was at second, but there was another guy. I think he's in the big leagues with the Rockies, maybe it was somebody was playing. Maybe it was LeMahieu in 13, playing second base, and we're in a 1-1 game. Beat Aaron Nola. The next time we beat North Carolina State, who was the number 1 seed, and then to go to Omaha, we beat North Carolina, and then you get rewarded with playing Mississippi State in the finals.
And you guys beat them all.
And we went 10-0, and we didn't lose a postseason game in 13.
That's impressive, man. Crazy. No, it's cool you got to be a part of that.
Unbelievable. And Omaha's everything and more what you see on TV.
I know. I got to get out there one of these years to watch it. It seems pretty cool to go check that out.
I was talking to Tulo this year.
Yeah.
It's the coolest. I've never been to a Final Four. I've been to a national championship football game. But I got to imagine it's pretty close to the Final Four. I mean, the streets are packed.
Sure.
Restaurants are packed. The city shuts down. Omaha does an unbelievable job with those guys. It's cool. It's a cool place.
Yeah, no, I bet. I wanted to get to kind of the way recruiting goes. Now that you've recruited at a few different colleges, is it pretty much the same pitch for you as what you are bringing to the table? Or is it like, well, certain schools have certain resources that are a little better than others, so you can kind of play off that, but not that you have to give away your recruiting secrets or anything like that. But what's it like recruiting at different schools? Does it change for you?
No, I think the message is the same, because I think number one, it's all about it's acquire and develop talent, right? That's the two things. And I think the development piece, the good news is at Long Beach, we didn't have all the bells and whistles, right? You know how that goes. The campus field sucked. The cages sucked.
No football team.
No football team. Everybody, we have holes in our uniforms. Everybody's sharing pants just to see who can fit that day. I mean, it was kind of a ragtag deal. And I think that was the best thing that happened to me also in my coaching career is that stuff is all surface stuff. And it doesn't help you win. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't help you win. I shouldn't say it doesn't guarantee that you're gonna play better just because your uniform looks cooler. because you have Nike, remember our Rawlings jerseys with our Adidas cleats and
right.
our Louisville gloves. And
we're one of the best teams in the country.
We're one of the best teams in the country, right? And our campus field was, it was as bad of a field as anybody can ever, but it's who we were.
Right.
Right. And I think our resources right where I'm at now is 10 times better than what it was then. But going to UCLA, the good thing is Coach Savage wasn't that way either. He wasn't about, it all came down to hard work and doing the right thing. And so the big selling point, obviously there, now it changes a little bit because you're selling UCLA education. You're selling, football, you're selling basketball, you got major sports, right? You got, it's over 100, there's 100 and like almost 30 national championships there.
Right.
Mississippi State is going for their first national championship in school history. Think about that.
Yeah.
So the pitch didn't change there either. It was about developing, and infielders you're going to get developed. The track history shows pitchers you're going to get developed, and you got a chance of playing a premier conference, right? So I think those are a few things. And now the same thing here. The pitch doesn't change. I think what changes more or less now is the times are different, right? Everybody's looking for their window shopping. They like the mannequin that's all dressed up in the window to lure you into the store, but they're not selling that product that they just got you in. Oh, we're sold out, but we have this. And I think that's what happens now to where our pitch is the same. It's still, we play in a really good league. We have won the most games in our league in 6 years. We've won our league, going back to Coach Johnson in 15, 3 of the last 6 years. We've been to a regional. We've developed, Buck and I and Abe have been around 50 major league players. So that part doesn't change. And we got 2 guys here that we coach that are not in AAA, knocking on the door in the big leagues. We got a Team USA member my first year in 2016. So it's just, if you want to work and if you want to grind and not have, as in professional baseball, that's how you're going to get to the next level. You're not going to get to the next level by walking in and saying, I'm Brett Lauren, I was a 6th rounder. Will you play me now? Well, no one cares.
Right.
So that part, the pitch hasn't changed. I think it's your geographic location changes, and you got to sell, the good news about that. But I still think it comes down, kids want to get developed. And that's if you can do that, I think you have a chance.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I looked at your roster, actually, speaking of recruiting, from what I saw, like 80-90% of the kids are from California. So, and obviously your assistant coaches have a lot of ties to Southern and Northern California, just from coaching experience and other stops along the way. What's it been like recruiting kids from Southern California to get them to come to Reno and say, hey, this is a potentially good fit for you?
Well, first you got to tell them where Reno's at.
Right.
Right. That's part of it.
It's not Las Vegas, that's for sure.
No, it's not in Vegas. But I think it's been good recruiting here. I think you are, I think from the recruiting standpoint is what you're going after, ends up becoming, you're going after a person that can handle weather a little bit. So maybe a different geographic location may not work here because you don't get weather in Long Beach per se. It's 85 and sunny 330 days a year.
Right.
So I think you're dealing with that a little bit. But like I said, going back to what you're still selling the same thing in development.
Sure.
But most of our connections are in California. You want kids that can play every day. Right. You want kids that are getting exposure every day, and you want kids that are playing in a market to where they're being challenged by the best players.
Right.
And that's no different than, then that's what we're looking for here is we still want the best players. It's amazing how many people call me and they're like, oh, I got this player. Okay, well, are you selling that same guy to Fullerton, Long Beach, UCLA, USC? Because we still want those players. It's just a matter of, I think, what are they looking for too? What's the families and what's the player looking for? But like I said, if you're looking for player development, I'll put our staff up against anybody in the country from a player development standpoint.
For sure. No, I would agree with that. And I know all you guys. No, I totally agree with that. I know you've been in Nevada for 6 years, so you got the job back in 2015. I just wanted to go back to how did it all come about? Did they find you? Were you looking? I mean, you had this incredible run at UCLA. How do you go from, all right, you're an assistant, now it's your time to be a head guy somewhere?
Yeah, and I don't know if you're ever really, the one thing John always talked about was always just be where you are, the Ken Revisa thing, right? Be where your feet are, or be present and all that. Just help your team win or your program win right now, and good things will happen. And I think that was the biggest deal. Jay left, went to Arizona, and then I was in Fort Myers, Florida, recruiting. And so John called me, and John's from Reno.
Oh.
So that's part of the connection. John was born and raised here. His family's still in Reno.
Oh, wow.
And so John called me and goes, hey, do you have interest in the Reno job? And I didn't really know. I said, well, if you think I should, then I will. If you think I shouldn't, then I'm going to get back to recruiting, and I'll see you when I see you, basically. And so he goes, no, I think it's a really good job. It's in a great town. It's a good place to raise a family. At that point, my wife was pregnant with Nash, who's turning 6 now in July, which is crazy, which is our youngest. And so I moved forward with them, and Doug Newth, our AD, who's still here, he ended up shooting me an email, and I was flying back from Fort Myers. I got in, I'll never forget, we were all living with my parents because our house was getting redone. We redid our whole house in Long Beach, tore it down and built it back up. And we were living upstairs in a 1-bedroom room with me, my wife, and 3 of our kids, and my wife's pregnant at the time. And I emailed Doug back like at 11 at night, but I was getting on a flight the next day to head to Phoenix. And so Doug emailed me back the next morning, and we ended up conversing. And oddly enough, we talked quite a bit. And then I was still in Phoenix when he said, hey, I'd like to fly you out for an interview. Well, so I didn't have any. I had no suit. I had nothing with me. So I had to go to the mall in Phoenix and buy myself a suit and a tie and all the above. And I flew from Phoenix to Reno. And then I asked him to fly me back to Phoenix to recruit because I had to finish where I was at. I didn't, the one thing, it was just all about UCLA at that time and getting those. We just got beaten a regional, which we were the number 1 overall seed. So that was disappointing. So I had to work and build the team for the next year and years to come. So, and then it ended up, I got home and Doug offered me the job, and I still wasn't really sure if I was going to take it, which is probably really hard to, I know that's tough, right? It's like, you offer the job, and I think it's terms. Whenever you're talking terms, when you go on a visit or a job interview physically, you better be prepared to take the job. Well, I wasn't prepared to take the job. I wasn't even sure if I was going to get offered the job. And I said, hey, I need my wife. My wife needs to come up and see it. And so at that point, we hopped in the car. We found a babysitter for our 3 kids. We hopped in the car and drove 10 hours to Reno, or it ended up being, it's about 8 hours, but it ended up being about 10 hours with traffic. And I made the decision the next day in my hotel room. I still wasn't sure. And a good friend of mine, Phil Nevin, who was the Reno Aces
former big league,
AAA player, or not player, manager at the time, and Andy Stankiewicz, is a good friend of mine at Grand Canyon. They both called and they're like, what are you doing? Like, what are you thinking about? Like, I don't really understand what you're thinking right now. And so it was kind of that. Once I had to get, I was trying to be really sure, right? You have
Yeah.
Kids, wife, all the above, and to go out on your own, scary. And I think that's what people don't understand either, is it's to be an assistant's one thing, but because you can always hide behind the curtain. I could always hid behind John, but I think it takes a really secure person to step out on their own and basically bear it all to say, hey, here, this is how I'm going to run my program. This is me. Let's go. And that's what I think gets undervalued during being a head coach. So I did it and haven't looked back since.
There you go, man. You made the right decision. Just need a little bit of push. That's all, You had a kid this year, Tyler Bassetti, hit 9 home runs in 9 straight games. He broke an NCAA record. That is obviously an incredible streak. Might not ever get broken again. Probably won't. What do you remember about that streak?
I don't even think I realized it was going on. I think it started at Air Force. I think we were at Air Force, and I don't even know what our record was, but I told the team, we have to go 13-3 to give you guys a chance to win. And that was before Friday. So backtrack. In my 6 years, but 5 years of playing the league, we haven't ever won a series at Air Force. So it's like, if you remember, our time at Long Beach was playing Santa Barbara. We just couldn't beat Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
It just never happened. And so I tell the team Friday morning, because I'm a lot like Coach Weathers, and the honest truth, I just can't help myself. And I'm like, hey, look here, you guys got to go 13-3. Well, we lose the first game. I didn't really like how we were playing. I took out as many starters as I could because I was not happy camping.
Sure.
Well, we ended up coming back, and you've seen that move from Coach before, right? We end up coming back, and we get within a run, and 3, 4, 5, 6, those guys come up in the 8th inning. Well, sorry, I can't do anything about it now. I mean, they're all out of the game. And Bassetti hit a home. I think it started the next day. And so then I don't play any of them. I don't start any of them, and we win. And Bassetti, I'll just never forget, Tyler went off. I think he hit 1 or 2 that day, and it just kind of went from there. But it was really neat to be a part of and watch. And I probably really figured it out with, like the last 2 games. I think it was somebody at home and then Arizona State on Tuesday. And then sure enough, in his first at bat, he hits it out of the park against Arizona State. And I'm like, I can't believe what I just watched. I don't care where you're hitting, elevation or not. It's really hard to hit a home run. And it's just special for him. And he's just one of the hardest workers I've been around. He's a true definition of grind and grit and tough, and just to see him have all that success is a tribute to him.
Yeah, no, that's an incredible streak. I saw another interview recently where you talked about one of the first times you started learning from your players a lot. You did more listening instead of teaching as much, and you really connected with this group. Can you tell us about kind of how this group impacted you differently this past year?
Yeah, and I go back to COVID. I think the one fault that we all have is people and coaches. I think if it's always done that way and that's how it's going to be done, well, that's the wrong answer. And I think I fell into that trap. And if you go back to the Augie Garridos, Dave Snows, Wally Kincaids, those guys were so progressive in their thinking, yet kept their old values. And I think that's what people don't know about them is Augie and Dave were so far ahead of college baseball that college baseball couldn't catch up to them. And so I misconstrued it as, well, these are their values, and now my values don't change, but my teaching's not going to change either. This is how I'm going to do it. Well, it's 2021, and as I always say, if you better adapt or die. It's one or the other in this game. And so it went back to COVID, really. I had to do a lot of soul searching myself. I was getting caught up in in just the wins and winning. And I'm not telling you I don't want to win, and I'm not telling you that I don't like to win, because I love to win, but I'm telling you, you better have a bigger purpose. And I'm telling you, you better have something that of substance, because the wins and losses are going to come and go. And when we're all done playing, as you all know, I mean, no one's talking to you about the '08, your ERA in 2008. No one cares, right? No one cares about A-ball, right? No one,
Right.
I mean, no one, I don't, hey, you won a national title in 13. No one's talking to me about that. No one cares. I think the bigger purpose is what are you chasing long term, I think, for your life. And that was what I really had to figure out during COVID. And I got really into my faith. I was somebody that was just, I just did it, right? I didn't really walk in the light with it. But I got super into my faith. And God showed me, revealed to me my insides. And instead of looking at yourself from the outside in, what we always do, right? Everybody, you got to turn yourself inside out. And that's what I did during COVID. And I lean on a lot of people. I got a lot of great people in my corner that help me yearly and daily, for that matter, do that. And so we did that. And then I think it just carried over to the bigger purpose with our team. It wasn't so much coaching them on the field, it was trying to coach them in their life. And I think that's what Dave Snow was so good at, and what Mike Weathers was so good at in a lot of areas he was preparing me for now, when I didn't really understand that. I thought it was just about winning. And coach loves to win, but I also know that coach handled losing as good sometimes as anybody I've ever seen, and getting it down into the bigger picture and what this could mean, and all that. And so I think this year we had a great group of leaders, and one of them is Bosetti, and I just ended up listening. And sometimes it was listening verbally, sometimes it was just listening to their actions and what they wanted to do. And it's not my plan. It's the bigger picture's plan, and it's God's plan, and it's not mine. It's just, I'm just kind of the caretaker, and I'm the tour guide, basically. I'm trying to be, but I'm not writing this story. And once I figured that out, I don't think I figured it out yet, because it's a work in progress every day. But once that happened with our team, I think our team just kind of took off, and I let them be. I let them, I think the turning point was probably playing at Texas. We went there in a midweek, 2 games, Tuesday, Wednesday, and we lost 2 one-run games at Texas, who obviously was at that point was the number 2 team in the country. And if you know anything about mid-majors, it's really hard sometimes in midweeks, let alone 2 midweeks on pitching.
You don't have 5 aces to throw out there.
No, you don't, right? And so I think that was part of that. But there again, I'll play anybody anywhere. And we went there and showed up, and our guys showed out, and actually should have beat them twice, if I'm speaking as honest. And I think I know it, and I think those guys know it too. I mean, they walked away thinking they got lucky. And Tulo told me, I have no idea why you guys are. I think we were 10-15 after Wednesday. We were 10-15, 5 games under 500. He goes, I have no idea why you guys are 10-15, and I didn't either. But I thought after Wednesday, how we handled losing was what propelled us to handle winning and be ready to win, is how I thought.
Yeah, no, that's important. You gotta know how to fail, and deal with adversity. So it's great you guys came to that. Just the last couple quick questions. As far as the Mountain West Conference in general, how would you, for those that don't know the difference maybe between the Big West with Fullerton, Long Beach, UCI, and the Pac-12 with the big schools, how would you compare the Mountain West to those other West Coast, Western regional conferences?
I think the Mountain West, is as good of baseball as anybody on the West, in all honesty. And that's just from being on both sides. Obviously, it's just different. It's a little different. It's a little different grind. There's a little bit more travel. You're used to 2-1, 3-1 games in the Big West. These are different because it's 15 to 14.
Oh, wow.
And
Just
you're
because the
down,
altitude is that?
yeah, and you're down 8-1 in the second, right? And you're trying to preserve your pitching for the rest of the weekend. And I'm telling Coach Buckley, like, Buck, we're still in this game, man. Don't do this, And I think so. It's just different. But I think and Buck validated that too when he came over from the Big West. He goes, hey, we're as good as anybody else in the West, and I think our league does it. And I think our league RPI this year more than ever did it. We had 3 teams in the top 40 in RPI. I mean, outside of the Pac-12, the Big West did not have that.
Right.
So I think when you're looking at it from that standpoint, I think it's as good as anybody. And I think you get to deal with a little bit more stuff. As Ken says, so what, deal with it, and you're dealing with different things here. You're going to Air Force and you're making a good pitch and the ball's going to get hit out of the park. It doesn't matter. Your slider's not very good that day because of altitude. Your change ends up becoming, if it's not on the plate under the bat, it ends up becoming a little bit elevated and it's going to get hit off the wall. It's not going to be a BFO, right? A Blairfield out.
Yeah.
And driven to left center, and then the ball, the wind not, the ocean knocks it down, right? It's not, you don't get rewarded a whole lot in this league, which I think makes it a little tougher. You have to be on your game all the time.
Right. And then as far as like kind of how college baseball is now compared to what is going on in the big leagues, are you guys talking about spin rate? Are you guys talking about launch angle and all that BS? I'm old school, man. I'm probably, a little younger than you, but same era, before all this stuff started happening. Is that a thing for you guys? Is that something you have to talk to recruits about? Where do you fall in the whole analytics stuff in college?
I think I think you got to adapt a little bit. I don't know, I always use here's like for hitters. I always ask for hitters, do you know if you hit the ball hard or not? Yes, coach, I do. Okay, so then I don't need a computer to tell you that.
Right.
Right. So I think it's, if you understand what it's teaching you, then I think there's value to it. I think from a spin rate standpoint, I think if you understand that Adam Plutko has a spin rate of X, that's why we pitched up so much at UCLA. I mean, we pitched at the top of the zone. John was one of the early guys, I thought, at least on the West, to do that. Everybody was down, down, down. John was up, up, up because of spin. And I think it's all how you give it to the players. That's what I think it is. And I think when you give too much to them, then they're focused on the wrong things.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing, right? And I just go from the hitting standpoint is I still want to be able to take a good at bat. I still want to be able to control the strike zone. Strike zone discipline is key. So that has nothing to do with launch angle.
Right.
It has zero to do with it, because if you don't have an approach, but you have a good swing, I don't think a good swing cleans up a bad approach. I think a good approach cleans up a bad swing. Right. I still think there's some variables of the old school method, but I think if you know how to translate what the data is telling you into layman's terms, so these kids can understand it, not kids, but young men.
Yeah.
Then I think you're ahead of the game. And I think that's what we try to do. We have some stuff. I don't have it all.
Yeah.
We got Rapsodo, which helps, but, and Buck, right? Buck, so he's smart and he likes to use, numbers and this and that. But I think it's only with the right guys,
Right. Some guys need that, some guys don't.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the adapting part. I don't so much talk about launch angle per se. I mean, I know what it is. I don't talk about it a whole lot, but I do get information from other guys. But I still think, so here's the question, right, that I always talk to our players about. Okay, so you want a spin rate of X or you want a launch angle of X. Well, if you're not working, it doesn't matter anyways. So who cares?
Yeah.
And I think it still goes back to the foundational values of grinding in the cage, but knowing what you're working on and knowing how to work on it will eventually equate to what you want it to look like. But right now we're in such a time where the kids want instant gratification, and that's what social media has done.
Right.
It's not social media is fine, right? You better embrace it or you're in big trouble.
Right.
And I'm on it just as much as anybody. But I think what it has caused is it has caused more insecure people. It has caused us to keep up with the Joneses. We're always looking for a like, which we're just doing something to do it so we get liked.
Yeah.
But I also think it's caused, an area, an area of that's what we see on TV, and I want this right now. Well, no, you don't get that right now. You don't just like I thought, right? I thought I was going to come to Nevada. I've been to a regional at Long Beach, I think, every year but the last two. I went to a regional at UCLA every year but one. Went to Omaha twice. I mean, I thought you just wake up and you go to those things.
Right.
But you got to work different, and you got to adapt, and you got to keep punching the clock. And if you're not doing that, none of that stuff matters anyways.
Right. No, I'm definitely with you on that. Last question. I played in Reno one season with the Aces, so the AAA team there. And you've been in Reno now for 6-7 years. What's it been like living there, and the difference between maybe Southern California, what you like about it, what you don't like about it? So how's Reno been for you?
I love Reno. I think what makes this community, it's a tight knit community. So it's hard to break in, it's a hard to be able to break in and punch through the tight knit is tough. And, but once you're in, and I think it's an unbelievable place to raise a family. I think it's an incredible place full of people and opportunity to be surrounded by people that truly care about you and your family. And as you know, living in Tustin, your neighbor doesn't even know if you're home or not right now.
Right. Yeah.
When we went to Omaha in 2013, I was gone for 22 days, and our neighbor asked me where I was at for 22 days. They had no clue. Here, that's a little different, right? Especially being a family person, a person with 4 kids. I need people. My wife, we all need, it takes a village, man. And we need some help at once in a while. Picking up our kids from school, running our kid here, doing this, doing that. Can you come over and watch? I mean, and you have a village here, and that's what it is. And so I don't have any negatives of it. In all honesty, it's been a tremendous 6 years here. I love the people here, and that's what's really made our stay here. And that's what will continue to keep us here, is the people that we're surrounded with. And I think that's what it's about. Like I said earlier, I think it's great, winning, losing, all your accolades. But at the end of the day, I know when I die one day, no one's going to get up and talk about my win-loss record. I think they're going to talk about the chance you have to impact people, and that's our job. And that's what this community has done for me, is they've impacted me.
I think that's a great message to end on. So where can everybody follow the program on social media, follow you, all that stuff?
Nevada Baseball, at Nevada Baseball on Twitter. Come check us out. But love to have everybody get on and see what we're all about. I think our program has been an incredible program, in all honesty, in the last 6 years. All right, we'll keep going up, but follow me on Twitter. I think it's at TJ_Bruce. I think I don't even know. And then I think my Instagram is at TJBruce02. Come check us out. Probably should follow my wife. She's a little bit. She's way better
more
on
into it. Yeah. Well, at least
media.
Yeah, at Nevada Baseball. That's the big main handle there. So.
Yep.
Well, thank you, TJ. It was great to track you down. Continued success, man. Definitely got to come up to Reno and check out some games. So thank you again, and happy to have you on.
Come on, man. Come to Lake Tahoe. We'll get you on the lake.
Okay.
Let's go.
I'm in.
All right, Brett. Thanks for having me.
You got it. And before we go, once again, I'd like to thank our new sponsor, VegasSportsAdvantage.com. They send out expert picks daily and they help clients win big. Click the link below or in the bio, wherever the comments you can find, where you can use my promo code TOOTALL. That's TOOTALL. It's one word. You get 25% off all the text packages today. So once again, my promo code to get 25% off the service. TOOTALL. It's one word, Too Tall, and you get 25% off for your texting packages. They got great plays. They text you the picks right before the game starts. You go bet them on your own sports book or sports betting website. I use the service. It's going great so far, so highly recommend. These guys have been awesome to me. So VegasSportsAdvantage.com. Make sure you use promo code TOOTALL so you can help the show as well as help yourself make a lot of money this year on sports bets. Thanks again. My thanks to TJ Bruce. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I thought he was awesome. Great insight from what it's like to be a coach and go through recruiting and everything. I think his message is great to his players, just, growing as a coach, as a person, and the way he communicates now and the way he recruits. You know what? It's all the same. No matter where you're at, it's about integrity and development and getting these guys, these young men to the next level and being a mature adult. So great job by TJ, and love the interview with him. As always, you can follow me on Instagram at Too Tall Sports Podcast. That's TOOTALL Sports Podcast. I can spell it. I don't want to spell the whole thing right now. At Too Tall Sports Podcast. On Instagram, it's at Too Tall Sports. You can follow me there. YouTube, go over there, check out the interviews. If you want to watch them live, we do video and audio. So if you want to watch the interviews, please check out our YouTube channel, Too Tall Sports Podcast. You can subscribe there, hit the bell notification. Every Thursday morning, we drop episodes, so you can watch them there. Please subscribe, send them to a friend, whatever you got to do. We really appreciate it. On the audio side, it's Apple Podcast and Spotify. But on Apple Podcast, while you're there, if you got a second, scroll down and hit the 5 stars. That would be awesome. We really need that. And also leave a review. That helps too. So if you like the podcast, hit us up with a review on the bottom of that section. But at least bare minimum for me providing you with the content today, hit the 5 stars if you're on Apple Podcast. I really appreciate it. Spotify, we're on there. You can listen there. It doesn't really help, but more listens are great. So go ahead and listen on Spotify if that's your favorite platform. We're on Pandora, we're on Amazon Music, we're on Google Play, we're on everything. So just type in Too Tall Sports Podcast. You can find the episodes there, and we really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the interview today. I'll see you next week for another great episode. See ya.